One of the things that becomes often rapidly conscious to people going through awakening is they suddenly feel more energetically and psychically vulnerable. And this certainly was the case for me. I remember how quickly that changed for me with every time my Kundalini process accelerated more, my vulnerability and sensitivity accelerated to somewhat or exponentially more as well. And so I continually was confronted with this need to improve my protection. What had suited me and served me previously suddenly wasn't enough. And there can be a whole lot of reasons why that happens. One of the most important ones is when you're going through rapid awakening changes, a lot of that awakening is also happening to your aura. Your aura is evolving as fast as your nervous system, as fast as your chakras, as fast as your consciousness. And anything that's in flux is often not as resilient. A resilient aura is usually very stable and consistent and steady. And that is not a heavily, fastly evolving human and auric system. An auric system that's got a lot of Kundalini activity in it is changing like this. And something changing like this can often, its energy is focused so much on change and supporting the change in the physical system that it doesn't have as much energy or life force available to have these very rubbery, resilient walls that hold the external world out. So this is part one of why we're more sensitive and psychically vulnerable. The other thing that happens is that we just become more aware of what is not good energy because we're becoming incredibly internally aware, and our sensory system is becoming rapidly refined and keenly sensitive, because that's also part of our navigating and awakening system. It becomes part of our awakened intuitive awareness. So we need that incredible internal awareness. That internal awareness is going to start showing up for us. That environment is really toxic. Those people's behavior, that's not really good for me. I feel very energetically impacted by that particular department in my workplace. We suddenly see there are a lot of things that maybe we could tolerate in the past that we were very resilient for, but as you go through awakening and expansions in awakening, suddenly you feel naked. And that nakedness, that vulnerability can at times feel debilitating. So it is important that we find new and expanded ways to continue building that resilience in our aura. So some of the things that I've used are some yogic practices, mantras and meditations that actually strengthen my auric boundary. Eating really healthy food, staying very grounded and connected to the earth. Those things also work for us. And one of the other things is to connect to your personal power. There's a way in which if you can embody and ground your personal power into your physical system, that also innately activates your aura. I also work with my spirit team, and I have them protecting me a lot of the time. And if I find that there's a vulnerability in my system anywhere, I will always be very curious. What is the vulnerability? Why is it there? How have I contributed to it? What decisions have I made in the past or in the present that have created that vulnerability? And what can I do to change it? What changes and adjustments can I make in the way I live my life? And what energetic repair, strengthening can I make, or changes in my belief system to give me an incredible resilience in the world? I went through periods of my life where I was very hermetic, and this is a very natural state, which I'll talk about in other videos, and I also talk about on my blog, so you can go and look there as well. But I went through times where, because there was so much change and there was such a deep inward pull, I was very, very hermetic. And that was actually, for that phase, the best way to protect myself was just to not expose myself to the world while I was going through this very curated change process. And then as I emerged from that process, and I also discovered more tools, and I was able to improve my protection, I became someone that could constantly be flying around the United States for work. I was flying between Australia and the United States and doing it with ease. And these things, once upon a time, would have been very hard for my auric system and my energy. And I probably would have got off those planes with a little bit of a toxic load of the energy in the plane. So there was this very gratifying resilience that then allowed a lot more expansion in my life. And I see this happening for people, that we naturally go through this deep sort of vulnerability and then we come out the other side a lot of the time with increasing resilience. Of course, that's variable on a lot of things, including the amount of trauma you have in the system, if you have illnesses, how intense or disruptive the awakening process has been to your energetic system. I believe that we deserve to protect our awakening. That is a precious and sacred gift, and it deserves for us to be curious, devoted, and dedicated to protecting it. There are also energies on this planet that love to knock our light around, that love to give us a good wallop. And I'm sure if you've been on this path for a while, you've experienced those impacts where something's trying to knock your light. And in a way, we need to, again, get very curious, ask very good questions, and make adjustments to keep your light protected. One of the other ways you can also protect your light is to cloak it. You can ask angels and guides to cloak your light. So you're still shining your light, but it's a way in which when you're moving through the world, or when you really don't feel like you want to be seen, or you're too vulnerable to be seen, you can literally wrap a cloak energetically around your aura that just conceals you and allows you to be less visible, and allows other people and other things to have the visibility instead. One of the last tools that I teach my students is also humility. Humility is a very powerful energy and a very powerful practice and state of being. And humility allows you to be grounded and connected to the earth. And it has to be genuine. You can't sort of practice a fake humility. It's not going to work. But if you can find and dream and imagine and meditate yourself into a strong, grounded state of humility that is actually important for you, then that in itself will make you not a target, because energies are looking for things that stand out in a very particular kind of way. And so humility requires a kind of surrender, and a surrender to something greater than yourself, and into the humility and into your relationship with the earth. But it is a profound protector, and I've passed this tool on to many students and clients and seen it be revolutionary in their life. So there's some of the ways, and there are many others, that I protect myself as an awakening being on a very complex planet where there's often unexpected conflict. One of these quotes that I laughed at when I read recently by an enlightened teacher, and they said, people think enlightenment and awakening is all peace and rainbows, but they forget you still live in a world with other people. And that's the truth. You're just going to come into conflict because you live on a planet with other human beings. And so psychic protection of your light, of your path, of your Kundalini herself deserves protection, is incredibly important. I encourage you to seek out anything that you know serves you and your protection, and be devoted to it, be consistent. And the final thing I would say about psychic protection on the awakening path is you have to make aligned decisions where you do not knowingly expose yourself and your light and your energy in ways that can be very destructive to who you are. There are plenty of things and misguided choices that we can make as awakening beings that are inherently unsafe. And you need to know what those things are, and how to stay the course, and how to be in deeper service to your awakening. And that includes not exposing it to things that are unsavory. So blessings to your awakening. May your path blossom before you, and may you feel safe as you walk upon it.